Good morning. The past is a portrait, unchanging and forever, a masterpiece of interconnected people and events. But like any great work of art, it can be defaced and altered, especially in the Twilight Zone. Stand and salute for Sergeant Orrin Talbot, recently discharged from the Vietnam War and, unlike many of his compatriots, seeking not a quiet place away from war, but someplace busy and noisy. Although he may not realize it, a quiet life may be what he's really after in the yesterday window. Orrin has come to Greenwich Village to paint pictures, his dream since he was 10 years old. But soon he has a different dream, of being in New Amsterdam in the 1600s, and a woman's face in the attic. Soon he discovers that part of the wall has been covered up and, once exposed, finds a window facing another building, but also facing the past. For gazing out of this window shows him a woman from the past that he's fallen in love with. She has a premonition of her father's death at sea, but the man won't stop his voyage without proof. And Orrin decides to head through the window to give him that proof, and falls right onto the sidewalk to his death. But it seems that when the building owner starts boarding up the window again, he glances out and sees Orrin alongside the people from the past. Perhaps this portrait has a new figure inside of it. There is another premonition of death in the next story, the manuscript. But as shown in the previous story, it is not always the end either. Pierre Lenoir, a French doctor who works himself to the bone, is working on a manuscript devoted to a theory about a rare disease that may yet be conquered. When he goes off on a house call, his wife sees his photograph fall off the shelf and shatter, just as Dr. Lenoir is run over by a carriage. Martha Lenoir swears to finish his manuscript, even proclaiming that Pierre will help him with it. Friends worry about her as she soon develops the same hard-working attitude as her late husband, whom she seems to be speaking out loud to. Forcing open the door one morning when she fails to answer, the friends discover her dead over the final page of the completed manuscript, and a signature for Dr. Lenoir at the bottom. The story of the Lenoirs reminds us that time is a limited resource for us all, something that seems to be taken to heart by efficiency expert Abner Darby in our next story, Time on His Hands. Abner lives from tick to tock, shaving seconds off those around him to make sure they're always producing at their absolute fastest, even if that means running people more ragged than before. He soon receives a letter warning him to stay away from their section without any clarification of who it's from, but the stationery hasn't been used in over 25 years. Since it belonged to the old warehouse, he checks it out only to find a private office full of people lazying about on the job. They're still working, but at their own pace, not keeping up on filing and orders and paperwork, even letting one of their office workers paint at his desk since he feels like doing it now. Abner is taken aback by such inefficiency, but soon finds he can't find his way out again. And poor Abner Darby now has nothing but time on his hands to work out inefficiencies, if he can. And finally, if Abner Darby has nothing but time, then Ramona Powers found hers used up in Telephone from the Tomb. The Hollywood columnist had passed away, and yet her phone calls were still reaching her clients. She was a mover and a shaker, getting producers to hire new actors and actresses, and getting them to drop old ones if they did so much as cut off support to their mothers. Her last client, Johnny Gage, was finally able to stand without her influence and had a fight with her where she swore vengeance. Even in death, Ramona made sure her tomb had a functioning phone line tied to it, and a trace of the calls led them back to the grave. The police believe it to be the crank calls of her former secretary, but soon Johnny reveals that he set up the whole thing to get back at the secretary for helping ruin his career. At least, until the phone rings, even when it's disconnected. And Ramona talks about what wonderful things they'll discuss now. The living have not enough time, and the dead more than they can use. Just a few words of advice on time management in the Twilight Zone.